Hello, Glowbusters. Yes, of course they're serious. You do? You have? No kidding. Uh-huh. Oh, they'll cure your globitis this week. Thank you. We got one!
Ladies and gentlemen,
it's the Glowbusters.
What are you supposed to be, some kind of a cosmonaut?
No, we're exterminators.
And now, here's your host.
And welcome everybody to Glowbusters, a changing perspective on flat Earth. I am your host, Bob Xanadude60, and here we are, back on another Wednesday for another great show for you. And actually, you got it's going to be a short show today, but only have a few things to cover, but still some pretty good stuff. And we're also running with a little bit of a short crew. We've got Zack and Jeran with us, but I don't know what happened to John TheMorgile. So I don't know if he's having problems with his phone or his computer or what the deal is, but whatever, we'll manage to get through it. So today, guys, we are going to be talking about, we're going to be reviewing a brand new video that Zack is going to be putting up, or actually has put up. And it's called Why the Sun and the Moon Wagon Wheel Across the Sky. And it's kind of an interesting video because it kind of makes you ask a question about what exactly it is that we're seeing there and how simple would it be to prove a ball and or a flat Earth if we were to do something like that in Antarctica. But we'll have to see how that works out. But it's a very interesting proposition, and we get the honor of premiering that tonight for Good Times for All, so that'll be really cool. And then also we're going to be covering some more information about gas behavior, as it relates to, specifically things like relative density disequilibrium. And guys, like I said, relative density disequilibrium does not work by itself. It cannot. There has to be a downward bias, and that downward bias, if you are unable to see that it is there without any other effect, I mean, you should be able to logically deduce it from a multitude of other ways. But to say that up is up and down is down just cause and there's no reason for it is patently absurd. And we do have people that are pushing that model, and I don't really like to mention them that much, but they just keep going with it. And they also say, gas does not go down, go boom, boom, or whatever. Or gas goes down, go boom, boom, making fun of this idea that gas is not affected by this downward accelerative force. And it most absolutely, certainly, positively is. And we're going to show you just a whole bunch more examples of that today. But, that's what happens when you get into, practicing grocery store delivery science. And I'm sorry, but, people that are pushing this have no idea what they're talking about. And it's sad. It really is. And, like I said, rather than, just agree to disagree, they will rather take the position of calling out everybody that disagrees with them as a shill. But, whatever. I'm just making my case one video at a time, 1 week at a time, because I know that there has to be an initial disequilibrium in the Earth in the first place for anything to work. We cannot be in perfect equilibrium everywhere. There has to be something that starts that juggernaut, guys, okay? And all of these forces start with this downward accelerative force. It starts so many things. And like I said, to deny that it's there and say, well, relative density disequilibrium is the only thing is there is patently absurd. Gravity, that's a different story. Gravity is not what they say it is. Gravity means weight. Weight absolutely exists. Nobody's denying that. But, when things are at equilibrium, they are still exerting a weight. So you can't say that force... Oh, go ahead, Zack.
Sorry, Bob. I was just going to say, their version of gravity, when they're talking about it, globe, profits, they should only be talking about the lights in the sky, because that's what their gravity pertains to. It does not pertain to what happens down here on Earth, according to their own math. So if you go by their laws and their rules and their maths, gravity has to do with the lights in the sky, and that's it. It has nothing to do with what takes place down here on Earth.
That's right.
I mean, we need to get that through people's heads, that gravity is not here on Earth. It's up there in the sky. That's it.
Yes. And even then, it's largely imaginative because we can't measure it. We observe these behaviors up there, and people at NASA will attribute this behavior to gravitational pulls, but can we measure it? No. Can they measure a gravitational field? Absolutely not. That's because there is no such thing as a gravitational field. They don't exist. What there is an electrostatic bias. There's a downward bias that is created by an electrostatic field that is ever present on the Earth. It's measurable. We know it is. It's been measured to at least 50 kilometers. And if you take it to its logical altitude of 62 miles or 100 kilometers, then you're dealing with a static potential of 10 million volts, right? And guys, we're swimming around in this. We swim in this. Without that electric field, I would dare say that we wouldn't even be able to exist without that electric field.
You know how much I could move with 10 million volts?
A lot.
A lot.
That's right.
Well, yeah, even when you're seeing those little iron filings moving around on those cookie sheets, to scale, they're taller than Mount Everest. Every one of those little iron filings. A human hair is taller than Mount Everest if you scale it down to 1 foot across.
Yep.
The whole mountain range is only a 3/4 of an inch long, and it's less than a human hair off the top of there. So to scale, it's definitely flat, and man, 10 million volts, that's a lot of potential.
Yeah, it really is. And, people think that they can override that with a 12-volt DC power supply and no Gaussian surface. I mean, it's utterly retarded. And I'll say who it is, Sleeping Warrior. That guy is dumber than a box of rocks. But, there is a reason why he got DF of the year, right? But, I mean, I'm serious, guys. I cannot believe anybody would be in that much denial that they think that they could override a 10 million volt static potential with a 12-volt DC power supply. It's just ridiculous. Anyway,
and a point source.
And a point source, yes. I mean, yeah, if you're going to do electrolysis, that's another story. But we're talking about changing the downward bias, which is an electrostatic potential, which, of course, takes a whole lot of voltage. But anyway, so we will address that here shortly. And we're going to show you some more videos that show this. And we're also going to show you the more videos that, yes, Nathan, gas does go down, go boom, boom. And we're going to prove that with a couple of new videos. Actually, 3. I found another one, Zack, that you didn't even see. It's funny because Action Lab just came out with it like an hour ago. So they always seem to do this. I know. It's like just on show day when I'm addressing something, they always seem to do that, which I think is pretty funny. But let's also give John Savage a shout out here. We have John Savage with us today also. And how are you doing, sir?
Cheers, Bob. Just listening along. It's a bit over my head, all the gravity stuff, but I do know that up is up and down is down, and that's about all I need to know, really. But yeah, it's I watched Zack's video. It's awesome. I stuck a link in the chat to something relevant that I did back in 2016, I think. But yeah, it should be a good show.
Yeah, this was actually something Nick Phuket Word taught me. back in, I think it was right around 2016, and I did a video back then, but you know, it got a couple hundred views or something like that. But it just was. I don't think it was time for it to take off. People weren't really looking at the sun so much back then.
Yeah, right.
Not as much. And now I'm hearing these questions pop up a lot more. The wagon wheel, why does that happen? Things like that. And so I redid it again.
I do want to ask you something, Zach, really quick, because one thing that I heard about the wagon wheel that I thought was interesting because it was kind of a different take on it. And it may have even been in response to one of Chris Van Maitre's videos, but you know, we look at those sunspots and they do appear to be going around like in a clockwise motion, right? But theoretically, we're looking at it from the bottom side. So if we were looking at a sphere that was actually up there on the sun, right? This is from a glober that provided this explanation.
You can't do this with a sphere. It has to be a disc. That's why I had to use a disc shape to do it.
Okay, because what he said, okay, so what you're seeing is these sunspots are going around because you're looking at the bottom of the sphere, and it is rotating, you know, on a vertical axis, right? But we're looking at the bottom side of it, therefore it looks like, you know,
we are not looking at the bottom side of the sun.
That's not. I know that.
No, and it takes. You know how long it takes for the sun to rotate all the way around? It's a lot longer than
I know. I get that. I'm just saying this was an excuse that was brought to me at Glober.
Oh my goodness, that's hilarious.
But yeah, I mean, desperation. So what do you do? But yeah, he said that, you know, and I thought about it. It took me a while, you know, and I thought about that, and it's like, well, you know, that kind of makes sense. You know, if it's a ball up there and we're looking at the bottom of it, and it's rotating on a vertical axis, we would see it go around in a clockwise spin, right? And then it's like, yeah, but that doesn't seem to add up on a lot of other things too, and especially with, you know, what you're going to show today.
Well, the moon does the exact same thing. So
I was going to say, presumably they're saying the same thing about the moon, are they?
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much, yeah.
Looking at the bottom of it.
Except the moon has, you know, and this is where I'm not sure where this fits into it, but they call the moon the libation, right? Is that right? The small oscillation that kind of goes back and forth. Is that right? Libration? Am I pronouncing that right?
Or is it libation? Yeah.
I think that's what it is.
A drink?
Yeah, one is a drink and one is a moon motion, but I don't know. Somebody in the chat will know, I'm sure. But pretty crazy. Oh, wow. You know what? I am not showing anything. I just noticed that. I'm not showing anything on my screen share. So there we go. Now I am. All right, guys. So I'm sorry.
I said, thanks, Robert.
Yeah, thanks, Robert. I don't see anything but the Globusters logo. And it's like, yep, I'm sitting there looking at it. Yep. But that's what happens. Sometimes I get distracted into what I'm saying and you don't really realize it. So anyway, all right. So let's take a look at this. Let's go out of this. And where is it? That's Zach's video. So this is basically, you know, what we're refuting in this gas molecules do not go boom, boom. And they're saying, guys, because of the ideal gas law, which first of all is not even real. The ideal gas law is just that. It's kind of a hypothetical ideal behavior, but not a real behavior, right? And in this, the only thing that happens is the molecules of the gas just kind of bounce off of each other, and they don't really lose any energy in doing it. Now, well, we know that's bullshit too, because things always lose energy whenever you're having a collision and a change of direction. You cannot do that. You cannot accomplish that without losing energy, right? So, I mean, these whole prospects that they lend over to the ideal gas law are absolutely absurd. And of course, ultimately, the point that Nathan Oakley and their crew are trying to make about it is that gas does not succumb to the downward electrostatic bias, or gravity, if you want to call it that, whatever. And it most certainly does. I mean, people, we have an atmosphere. Now, I've made the case, they don't want to admit that we have a dome over the top of us, but I've made a hell of a good case that there is a dome over the top of us. There has to be a dome over the top of us. That is the necessary antecedent to be able to measure gas pressure, right? Of course it is. So if we have a gas over the top of us, a dome over the top of us, and we have a gas pressure, well, sounds to me like we have everything that we need then to go up and let's start measuring those pressures. And if we do measure those pressures at sea level, we find out that it's about 14.7 psi, and it goes up in a very delineated way, all the way up really, really high, 100, 200,000 feet, to where it's almost non-existent, but not non-existent. Now, they want you to believe that that gas pressure is caused by the gases being manufactured at the ground level. And while that may be true, but stupid, yes, it's true that the gases are being manufactured at ground level by a lot of things, plants, chemical processes, you name it. They say hydrogen and helium are made by some radioactive material or something like that has a decay rate that's creating
I would say that
helium.
it was more of a circulation of the gases, not so much a manufacturing. You know, they're not made down here. We breathe in the gases and we exhale other gases, and
They are made in a way, though, Zach, because when you say made, that's kind of a broad term. I mean, you know, if plants supposedly take in CO2 and then put out oxygen, then, you know, they're kind of manufacturing that. There are things that, like, for example, when things decay, they will produce methane gas, etc. You know, I mean, so yeah, I can accept that most of the gases would be quote unquote manufactured down here, but they also cause a displacement. And yes, there is a constant circulation that's going on inside the flat Earth model, and we get wind velocities up to 200, 300, 400 miles an hour sometimes, right? So yes, it's obviously actually happening that we do get the mixture of the gases, but ultimately those gases are going to settle down and they are going to fairly much, separate from each other by their own density. And we're going to prove that, guys. I'm not just saying this because I like to hear myself talk, but unlike those other guys, we're going to prove it. We're going to show it to you, right? Point blank going to show it to you. And hopefully this will shut them up and they will not ever say it again, because frankly, it just makes us look stupid to go around saying that, gravity or the downward accelerative force does not affect gases. It most certainly does. And before that, before Zack put out his video, they were also making the claim that electrostatic forces would have no effect whatsoever on any gases. Well, Zack's video certainly disproved that. We have ion propulsion, which is basically taking electrostatic fields and moving gases around with it, and as a result, ultimately propelling something. Granted, it's not a very good method of propulsion, but it is demonstrable. It does actually
they
work.
are flying a plane now. MIT has a plane that it's still in a drone. It's only a drone. It's not a full-size plane or anything. It's a big drone, though. But yeah, they power it with electric potential. They have electric potential in front of the wing, a positive and a negative behind it, and the air that flows through there propels the plane.
Yep.
No
Go
moving
ahead, John.
parts.
I was just going to say, am I right in thinking that electrostatic force can bend the water coming out of a faucet?
Oh, absolutely. You can take a balloon and rub it up against your hair and do that.
So if it can affect water, then where's the logic in saying it can't affect gas? I don't understand.
It's unbelievable. And like I said, for them to say that gases are truly homogeneous, they're not. They do separate. They don't mix all the way up. Yeah, they do mix to some degree. But again, when they are lack of stimuli, they will succumb to that downward electrostatic bias. Period. There's no denying it. And, like I said, our biggest proof is our atmosphere itself, right? Because we wouldn't have all this atmospheric pressure down here. And like I said, it's not because it's manufactured here. It doesn't matter. If we took all those gases up there like sulfur hex or anything like that, and dropped it from a high altitude, you know what they're going to do? They're going to fall down until they find a place where they can equalize and reach a state of equilibrium. So anyway,
Totally.
so this is the bullshit that they're pushing, which is complete crap. And now, and Sleeping Warrior takes, this little first grade experiment where he pours salt in a glass with an egg in it, and it causes the egg to float. You know what? You could have just let that egg sit there for like a week, and after a week, it would have floated all by itself. Does anybody know why that would happen? I'll let you figure that
Spoils. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. But it's ridiculous.
But no, there is a downward bias here. I mean, he's asking the question, yes, there's the downward bias right there. That the egg was denser than the water. So the downward bias was affecting the egg more because it's denser. It has more electric potential. Then when you add the salt to the water, now the water is denser. So therefore, the force affects the water more, and the egg rises. It's that simple.
It is indeed that
still
simple.
Works with electricity.
Up is up, down is down.
Well,
but yeah,
in
I
fact,
always thought this experiment explained quite well the up-down vector. So there you go.
yeah, but this is just stupid, and he makes all of us look stupid by doing this. But he's got his hands full with all the globers. The globers think that it's gravity, that's causing this and whatever. But at least they're closer than he is, because they're at least admitting that field is there, and it is. Guys, you cannot do any ballistic calculations or anything like that without factoring in this downward accelerative force. We couldn't do anything without it. So the math proves it, the physics proves it, the observation proves it, everything proves it.
Did you ever see that MythBusters where they shot a rifle bullet and dropped one at the same time, and they landed at the same time?
Yeah, I did, and I don't know what to think about that because that doesn't make any sense to me.
I know those guys are a bunch of fakers, so I'm not going to put any credence on it. I'd like to see somebody do that, in the community. That'd be a cool one, I think. It'd be hard to measure.
Yeah. So, all right. So the first thing I'm going to start off here is with this video, and this is something that I did in elementary school, again, in science class, elementary school. And I thought it was cool because, you could actually blow out a candle. If you take vinegar and you pour it in baking soda, it creates a gas. It creates carbon dioxide. And that carbon dioxide is heavier than the air around it. So you can literally take it and you can pour it onto things and extinguish a candle. So, again, this is old science, but here's one of the proofs right here that, yes, gases do go down through other gases. They do not instantly become homogeneous. In fact, they don't ever become homogeneous, not entirely. Anytime there's stimulation, then it's going to be more homogeneous. But when it is left and it is still, then the density layering is going to take place. Why? Because there is still a downward force on it. So let's watch this and see how this works.
Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to my laboratory. Today we're gonna be doing some more experiments with fire, like candles and baking soda and vinegar. But safety is number one priority, and of course you always want to have this one at home. Just keep it close by when you do some experiments. And of course kids, you want adult supervision. Alright, let's light up these candles and I'm gonna tell you what we're gonna do. What you wanna do is get some vinegar and put some vinegar up in here and then put some baking soda. You see how it's producing gases? Put all that gas in this glass.
Yeah, he's literally
like
pouring it and it's displacing the air out of that glass. See, there's nothing in it but CO2. And then watch this. Oh, isn't that amazing? He didn't have enough to do that one, but
Let's
can
get
take it out of that.
some more of that. Let's see how the air. Alright, hope you enjoyed this steak, bacon soda and vinegar. Fill some people up with the different glass. You can move the gas into the different glass.
That's right. So it is being drawn down because yes, it is a heavier gas. And it's extinguishing the candle.
I've never seen that before.
Really? I used to do that trick all the time. I thought it was cool.
Yeah, I haven't seen that either. That's quite cool.
Yes.
I'll have to try that.
Actually, the way I did it is I made a little aluminum foil like a chute. You fold it in half, so you've got a 90-degree angle, and then at the bottom of the chute it has a candle. And I started pouring it, and then it goes down the chute and it blows out the candle every single time. He poured it directly on it, but the point is we have gases that are seeking out their density equilibrium, right? The gases are, but they're only doing that because they have a downward force on them. It's there. It has to be there. Okay. Now let's look at another one. I already showed you that one. No, I haven't showed you that one yet, but let's, now this one came from Spangler Science TV, and I don't know if this guy is Kelsey Grammer or not. It kind of looks like Kelsey Grammer, but, it really does. He looks a lot like Kelsey Grammer to me. But, now what he's going to do here is this is a tank full of sulfur hex, SF6, right? Now, the interesting thing about SF6 is volcanoes put it out in mass quantities, right? And, Airy has demonstrated some really interesting behavior with sulfur hex. And when you get it cold enough, it starts taking on some wild superconductive behavior. But that's not what we're interested in right now. What we want to see right now is we want to see how this sulfur hex, which is indeed a gas, acts very much like water, which is indeed a fluid, but gases and liquids are both considered to be fluids anyway, guys. They are both classified as fluids, and we are going to set sail a little boat on this sulfur hex, and they're going to do a couple different tricks with it. So let's give this a watch.
Inside this tank, it's called sulfur hexafluoride. It's a super heavy gas. Sulfur
hexafluoride.
It's boring. It's inert.
Anybody asks what happened
it's
to
odorless.
it.
So it's normally boring. But here, watch this. I'm going to slowly pull the lid off.
Okay.
So that should be perfect. Gary, would you take that little end off over there as well? You see that? Yeah.
Yes,
all right.
indeed.
So let's see if it feels pretty good. So let's see if we can float the boat. Okay. Ready? So here we go. Let's see if we can float the boat. Stay there, little guy. Tell me that's not awesome. Isn't that amazing?
Cool.
That is awesome. Magic as you can. So is that, no, it's okay. Push it around. It's okay.
That's crazy.
So this heavy gas is about 6 times heavier than the air that we breathe. And so I just have it coming through a tube here. And so I'm going to give us just a little bit more so you can kind of see what's going on. Here's what they use it for. Electrical engineers will flood a room or part of a semiconductor or something with this material because it doesn't allow electricity to, it doesn't conduct electricity. So here's a taser. Okay. Come on. All right, so look, so here's the taser. So when I put the taser down inside, here, watch this. When I put it down inside, it stops.
Oh, it stops working.
And now when I bring it back out again, so they will keep it. So if you don't want something for arcing from one place to another, but the coolest thing is this: because it's inert, you can breathe it, and you might see something different. Ready? So
can I go first?
So just stick your head way down inside and breathe in. Breathe in. Ready? Now talk to the nice people. Try it. Come here. Get in there.
Awesome.
All right. So,
My name is
Amelia, Becky, get in here. Kyle, get in here.
That is awesome.
Breathe some. Ready? So breathe it in. Take a big. Don't waste it. All right. There you go. Now talk.
Okay, guys, but unfortunately, this is what science has come to. But we've all done it with helium, so it's fun. It's fun to talk goofy. But
I want a taser.
yeah, it's interesting because it does have that non-conductive. Now, just because it's non-conductive,
amazing.
Oh, yeah, it is. But just because it's non-conductive electricity does not mean that it is immune to it. In fact, if we were to take that very same experiment that Zack showed with the guy with the long hair who is hooked himself up to a electrostatic generator or what the hell do you call it again? Your
Van de Graaff.
The Van de Graaff generator. Yeah, hooked himself up to a Van de Graaff generator. The Van de Graaff generator, the static electricity with that will literally create a wall and blast that sulfur hex gas right out of that tank, right? Because it is affected by electric currents, contrary to one of their people that said that it wasn't. And there are several gases. In fact, I don't know of a single gas that is not affected by an electrostatic field. I just don't think there is one. Why? Because all matter, it carries a charge potential of some kind. Period. Even if it's...
I was going to say, isn't everything affected by electrostatic?
Everything is. And you could say, well, no, there's things that aren't, that doesn't have an electrostatic charge. Yes, that's true, but that doesn't mean that it isn't affected by something that doesn't have an electrostatic charge. You know, that's what it comes back to.
Everything has an electrostatic charge, but most things are neutral in some way or another. I mean, there's electricity flowing off your body at all times. You know, we're creating electricity inside of us. We can't just store that. You know, every heartbeat, it's like a battery. We have an electromagnetic field there. We have to dissipate this energy. You can't just hold on to it. So, I mean, there's electricity flowing off of us at all times. You point your fingertip out, electricity is flowing off the tip of your finger more than it is anywhere else on your body. It has to do with the radius and, you know, it gets a little more technical. But yeah,
what was that video with the Russians where he was charging himself up and he was just pointing? Yeah, he was just pointing at candles across the room and snuffing them out, wasn't he?
Yeah, that was one of Zach's videos. Here, I'll show it to you. This is really cool.
That might get you struck because that's the reason I had a copyright claim on my channel.
I don't care. It doesn't matter. Screw YouTube. Let's see. Do you remember what it's called? Which video it's called?
Yeah, it was the incoherent electrostatic acceleration.
Oh, okay. That's right. Derpy derp.
That catchy title.
Yeah, imagine that.
Not seeing it. I thought I did it after all these. I know.
No, here it is. Is it this one or this one?
No, it's neither of those. It should be up more.
Okay. Tell me when you spot it.
It's all in red writing. I'm not seeing it.
It's all in red writing?
Yeah, it's a black background. Oh, right back down there. Oh, go up a little bit. It's on the right-hand wall. The right-hand side if you keep going up. No, up.
Oh, up. This one?
Nope, keep going.
That's the top, man.
It just saw it, I thought.
This is it. This is it right here, isn't it? Let's see. I'm pretty sure this is it.
Yeah, and that's not what the thumbnail is supposed to look like.
Yeah, well, no, where's the guy? There he is, right here. Okay. Yeah, this is it.
That's it.
All right, Zach. We're going to have to give you a lesson on your own videos.
I know. It's got a thumbnail. I don't know why they were showing that part of it. That's weird.
Okay, so let's jump into it.
In layers above. This has not been verified by anyone I know, so at this point I cannot say if this is true or not. Through this induction, some pretty amazing things happen when large electric potential differences are applied to gases. When gases are placed into an area with a strong electric potential difference, we get the phenomenon known as ionic wind. If a person were to charge themselves up with 1 million volts of static electricity, They could blow out a candle almost 2 feet away from
That's
the
so
gases
cool.
rushing away from their fingertip because of the exceptional potential difference.
It's brilliant,
We do
isn't
know
it?
that when a gas loses its electricity,
I was like, man, I want 1,000,000 volts.
Yeah, we need to get a better.
Get out of your Van de Graaff. That's about $250,000, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah, 250,000 on when the weather's perfect.
His is a baby Van de Graaff.
Need to build a bigger one.
We need a big one that throws out a couple million volts. That'll do the trick. Those things are cool.
Yeah, I got that one because I wanted to learn first before I started really playing. I didn't want to kill myself with electricity.
Oh,
yeah.
So
Anyone planning on doing this, don't ground yourself.
Yep.
Don't touch the floor. The guy's sitting cross-legged on a chair for a reason.
Chair and on sitting inside or like a plastic tub.
Don't blame him, to be honest.
Yeah, they know what they're doing. So yeah, don't try that at home.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So, whoops. Where is this? How many of these do I have in here? The infrared. Oh, I have that in here twice. Sorry, guys. Let me get my shit together. And obviously one of these I did not get in the right place. So let me go over here.
You got about as many tabs open as I have. It's addictive, isn't it? I can't shut a tab down until I'm even when I've read it. I'm like,
well, there's a secret for that. It's called Control Shift T.
Yes, to bring them back up. Isn't it?
Yes, that'll do the trick for you.
A common middle school
I found that one a couple of months ago. That was very useful.
Yep. All right. Is it that one? Oh, is it that one? How about this one?
Hey, what's up, everybody?
Oh, come on. What the hell, man? Now I'm doing it. All right. Well, let's just go on to this other one, and I'll find that in a minute here. But the thing that brought this, first of all, to the idea that there is a downward pressure, right? And I actually did a show on this 2+ years ago to a very skeptical audience, and Jeran was one of the people. Jeran and Airy were both very skeptical, and in fact, they didn't buy it at all, and they especially didn't buy it after Jeran did some information and some research on a gravimeter and what it actually did. Well, that's all fine and dandy because I'm open to that kind of stuff. But after a while, Jeran and I talked for several hours one night, and I showed him all kinds of stuff. And after a couple of hours, 2-3 hours, I finally got him to understand that, up and down are just not magically determined. People like to say, well, God made it that way. Well, of course, maybe God did make it that way, but there's got to be an effect that's causing that to happen, right? You can't just say a wizard did it or God did it, right? There has to be a reason for why that's happening. The mainstream tells us it's gravity. We're telling you it's electrostatic downward vector. We could be wrong. They certainly are wrong because, like I said, gravitational fields do not exist. And if they did, they wouldn't be trying to measure them with accelerometers, right? With LIGO. And speaking of that, that's funny because that's exactly how a gravimeter actually works, right? So what they do is they say that it measures the gravitational field, but that is not true at a specific location on Earth, right? That's what it says, but that's not what's happening. What they're actually measuring with these gravimeters is the rate of downward acceleration, right? How fast does something drop when you let it go and it drops down? Well, our physics books tell us 9.8 meters per second squared. And in general, that's probably true, for most things, but there are still all over the world, they have small variations in the rate at which objects will fall that have nothing to do with the density of the medium they're going through. And in fact, what they do to prove that is they remove any sort of atmospheric medium. In other words, they do this in a vacuum. What is Sleeping Warrior's genius answer to this? Well, you don't have vacuums in nature. It's like, no, you don't. But that doesn't mean that you can't use them to prove a point, right? If you're making your case on relative density disequilibrium, being based on one density of a medium will go lower than another density of medium, then it makes sense to just simply eliminate the density of medium, right? And then see what that does to the other object that you're going to compare it to. Well, what happens is these downward acceleration rates actually change minutely. And it's not a whole lot, but it's enough to be able to discredit the relative density disequilibrium argument. Okay. Why? Because there is no other medium to base it on, right? You have something that's simply falling through the space, and it is succumbing to something, right? Something is pushing it down. And this, by the way, was the argument that finally got Jeran. It wasn't so much that, he goes, it's interesting that it does go down, but what really got him, guys, and you need to think about this, is that left unchecked, things will go down and they will accelerate, and they'll go faster and faster and faster. And we really have no idea how fast they'll go. From what we've seen by, certain demonstrations, things will go beyond supersonic coming back down, which is pretty interesting in and of itself, right? So that's what this actually does, is it measures the downward acceleration. And isn't it interesting, guys, that the places that they find the gravitational anomalies, quote unquote, is also the places where they find magnetic anomalies. Now we know that electricity and magnetics are two heads of basically the same coin. They're two sides coming out of the ether in different manifestations. And it just, it makes sense that, where you have a magnetic anomaly, you're going to have an electrical anomaly, which means that you're probably going to have a so-called gravitational anomaly, because gravitational is really related to the electrostatic wing of this trio, right? So, all right. So we get to that. And one of the things that I showed, while demonstrating this, is this Carthage College video, right? And in this, what this did, because Sleeping Warrior had to go and use a density medium, then I said, okay, great. So let's take that density medium. And what we have here is we have something that's got lamp oil, rubbing alcohol. All of these things are different densities, right? And as you can see, they line up perfectly, right? So now that's just in normal Earth gravity, right? But what I'm saying is that without that downward bias, this can't happen. So how do you take away that downward bias? Well, you can't really take it away, but what you can do is offset it. And the way you can offset it is by dropping it and matching that acceleration, right? Which brings us to a vomit comet, because that's exactly what they do. And that's how they get the zero G effect. So what happens to a density tower in a vomit comet? Well, let's find out.
Behave pretty well as long as they aren't jostled too much. Here's a tower with 3 immiscible fluids: vegetable oil, water with blue. This is the exact
Skip
same
forward.
job as car coolant,
We don't need to go to the
just in space.
spacecraft coolant. That's
Links in the
ridiculous.
description for more about form a different experiment with FC72 in 0G. The layers sit on the plane. To take that layer
Alright.
laying, let's turn it over to John to see the fluid in action.
Okay.
Density tower. It's got different liquids, different densities. So right now we're in the microgravity, so they're really separate. So you have FC72, water, and vegetable oil. Then as soon as we hit zero, as soon as we go into microgravity, well, you'll see. 0. Science!
That was a bit tough to see as John started to float away with the tower, but did you see the way it oozed? Let's see it on the next parabola, once John has strapped himself down a bit.
0. Not separating at all. It's just sitting there floating. All of it mixed up. Yeah, just a little bit. 0. 1. 0. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1
Did you see how the fluid didn't separate out like it did in normal gravity and hypergravity? And did you see the different color blobs just cycle around? Watch it one last time as John swishes it up going into 0G.
0, science. Feels like the pump's still working.
It almost looks like a
that's
lava
pretty cool
lamp.
swirling in there.
In conclusion, when we take away gravity, we take away up and down. With no sense of direction, neatly ordered systems like our density tower start acting all chaotic, with everything going in all directions. And that is pretty cool.
Yes, it is.
And this is the experiment I had a slight problem with, because obviously none of us own an anti-gravity plane that we can try this out in. So what I did was fill a syringe with a bunch of different fluids and sand and stuff like that, and stuck it in my handheld drill on the horizontal axis. So the tube was on the horizontal axis, and then span it, and the drill was facing upwards, and then span it around, and it went into its separation layers. So people can test this out for themselves. Did I explain that well?
No, actually you did. You did fine with it. And
Yeah.
beyond that, and I haven't been able to find this video. I do have it recorded somewhere, but I haven't been able to find it. But Seventh Day True Seeker, you guys may remember him, Rick. Actually, when he was doing a remake of my demonstration of this, he found another video that showed what happened when the pilot pushed it beyond the zero G rate, right? In other words, you keep pushing it over and everything is going to go flying up to the top of the aircraft, right? Well, when that happened, the ingredients in the density tower once again restructured themselves, but the interesting thing is they did it in the opposite direction. And so there you have it, proof positive that you must have that bias present to be able to have a density tower function. Now, once that bias is there, then relative density and buoyancy work beautifully fine. But to say that they don't exist is utterly retarded, and it makes no sense. And nobody can prove otherwise. And yet we can prove that it does do that all day long. Here's another demonstration. This just came out today. 49 second. Now this is Action Lab, and he was wondering what would happen if you were blowing bubbles in a bag of water or something, and then kind of created a 0G condition, right? And essentially what's going to happen, and what does happen, is the bubbles do not rise anymore when he creates this condition. And he creates it simply by dropping it down. So I've talked enough about it. Let's let him show you. Here we go.
Is falling, it experiences no.
Whoops.
When something is falling, it experiences no force of gravity. So what that means is that if it's a bubble falling, the bubble won't know which way is up. So if you drop a bottle while you're blowing bubbles in it, the bubbles won't know which way is up, and they'll just stop moving. So I started off this experiment just jumping off my couch with a big cylinder filled with water while blowing bubbles in it, and it didn't work out very well. But then I figured out a better way to do it by hanging it way high up in the air, blowing bubbles, and then just letting it drop without me. So you can see at the bottom of the bottle, the air bubbles in the water just completely stop and just stand still. And another thing to notice is that before I drop it, the bubbles are all squished because the pressure on the bottom is greater than the pressure on top, so it squishes the bubbles. But when I drop it, since there's about equal pressure on all sides of the bubble, it's almost round.
All right. So guys, this is why I say, denying gravity is okay to a degree, but to deny that there is a downward force is retarded. And you're just making us look stupid by proclaiming that. So if you want to deny gravity, that's great. And even, like I said, technically, gravity means weight, and you can't really deny weight because that's something that is, well, it's pretty obvious. Weight does exist. What you can do, what you want to do if you want to enter this discussion with a glober is say, yeah, well, your model of mass attracting mass just does not seem to be demonstrable. We've never been able to satisfactorily see that happen. And in fact, in a lot of the Cavendish experiments, we actually see a more of an electrostatic effect, like from what Sly Sparkane did, than we do.
Sly.
Yeah, thanks, Sly, for that. Than we do anything else, right? So, but to just go around and make the statement, you know, carte blanche that, oh, gravity doesn't exist, you make yourself look really dumb, because what most people understand as gravity is this downward force, right? The things that make things go down, all right? And there is a force that makes things go down, and it is a force, right? A force is something that is defined as to be able to cause an acceleration, right? You have to, in other words, it's an axiomatic law of physics that when you have an acceleration of anything, there must be a force that's causing it. That's an axiomatic law, never been debunked, never will be debunked. Okay? So if you...
Yeah, force equals mass times acceleration. F equals ma. Right.
Now, of course, the problem with that is the m variable, mass, which is a freaking mess, okay? And in fact, we did a show called Sunday Mass, which I believe it's over on Rockfin for free if you guys want to watch that, which basically showed that, you know, the mainstream's definition of what mass is, they don't have a freaking clue what it is. They really don't. But, you know, for our practical purposes, because we do know, you know, what causes our downward acceleration here, what you can define mass as is simply weight, period. That's good enough.
Which is what, like you said, which is what gravity means. It's derived from the Latin gravitas or whatever.
That is exactly right. And that's the whole thing, you know, and I'm just, you know, I just don't want people going around spouting this off because it really is the height of ignorance to go around proclaiming that. I mean, it is so easily debunked, right? And sleeping, you know, people really want to believe in Sleeping Warrior's relative density disequilibrium model, but it is just stupid, people. Think it through. Think it through. Look at the evidence. You know, he could have made anything, he could have claimed anything would have changed that downward bias, right? It's just, oh God, it makes me so crazy. What makes me even crazier is he goes around telling people that I'm a paid disinformation shill because I'm presenting this to the world. It's like, no, I'm presenting the truth to the world. And if you don't want to listen, then that's up to you. But, you know, this is something that is way obvious. And, you know, if we're ever going to get a dialogue open with anybody on this, then we need to call out gravity for what it actually is. And frankly, it really doesn't really matter in the flat earth model, because as far as anything being gravitationally attracted in the heavens, that can't even be demonstrated. It cannot be demonstrated mathematically or in any other way beyond a two-body problem. And that's just a fact.
No, you have to put 95% dark matter and dark energy up there to make gravity work, to make it all look like it does up there in their model. You have to believe that you're looking at only 4% of what's actually up there.
Narnia.
Yeah. It's retarded. It really is. I mean, people, there is a downward acceleration. Don't ever think that it is not there. To deny that is the height of ignorance. It really is. And I will keep on proving it over and over with all these demonstrations. And you just keep going on with your little stupid egg demonstration, which proves nothing. And I'll keep on coming out with these things because we have evidence all day long. Why? Because it's the truth. You can actually demonstrate it.
It's fine being wrong. You know, everyone, we can't all be right all the time. And I will openly admit, and it's no secret, that I was in the relative density camp when it first came out. It made a lot of sense to me. But after you see the evidence that's put forward for it, then it turns into bloody mindedness and ego, I'd say, not to be able to admit that you were wrong. And I'll openly admit I was wrong. I was in that camp. But then I realized the error of my ways, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're all there. Look, there's lots of things I've had to admit on more than one occasion that I've been wrong about something on the show. And you know what? I don't like doing it, but I will. And I will because I care more about the truth than I care about my ego and being right. Yeah, everybody hates being wrong, and especially being made fun of because you're wrong. But, when you're wrong, you say, okay, well, guess I was wrong, explain why, and move on. And that's all you have to do.
Did you learn something?
Yeah, exactly.
Admitting you're wrong just means that you've learned something. Yeah.
Nothing wrong with being wrong, as long as you can admit when the obvious is pointed out to you. Anyway.
Yeah, it's crazy. So anyway, you have all this, and one of these days I would love to do a really comprehensive zero-G gravity. Maybe we could crowdfund one or something. I don't know how much they cost, but I'm sure they ain't cheap. But it would be really cool to be able to prove that. And you would think that the Globers would want to contribute to that just so they can prove what they're saying about gravity, even though it wouldn't prove that at all.
I think they're about $5,000, Bob. Not much.
Really? That's not bad.
Yeah.
It'd be cool to take a gravimeter up there and see what you could do with that.
We could take all sorts up there, couldn't we?
Well, yeah, but the gravimeter it'd be way too unstable for. I mean, we know what would happen; it would drop to a zero. But seeing a density tower actually physically separate and then go in the opposite direction, that's really convincing. And damn, I wish I could find that footage. If anybody finds that footage, please send it to me. It's out there. I've seen it, and it's where the pilot is going. It takes it beyond the zero-G point and causes everything to go up and hit the ceiling. And yes, then things rearrange and they rearrange in the opposite direction. So again, mathematically, that is required. And even if you're going to calculate the ballistics of that, it still requires that calculation. Simple as that. So,
well, the zero-G is them kind of just falling, right? At a certain angle, at a certain rate. And then they could actually thrust and go beyond that zero-G and reverse it.
Exactly. You just add a little more acceleration downwards, and that counteracts it, and that causes things to go up, which will absolutely cause not only you and everything else to hit the ceiling, but it will cause the density tower to arrange in the opposite direction as well, which if you have a brain, people, that tells you right there that must be the way that it works. If it arranges in one direction, in regular gravity, and you go beyond the zero-G point to the positive gravity side or negative gravity side, and it arranges in the opposite direction, which it does, I guarantee it, you can't draw any other conclusion. It's as simple as that.
Spin it around in a circle on the horizontal, and it'll arrange itself horizontally.
Yeah, exactly. Or you could, you're right. You could do it that way too. In other words, wherever you're applying the bias, this bias force is where it's going to arrange to. And we could do that too with centrifugal force. I don't think we could do it centripetally. Maybe we could, but we can certainly do it centrifugally and get it to arrange, in a sideways, swinging it around in a circle. I guarantee you we could do that.
Yeah.
So
it
requires a force, and that force is there, and it's there all the time, and it is downward electrostatic bias. I'm not going to call it gravity because that's not what it is. But that's what Globers call it. So, let's just not, let's not argue over that, because frankly, like I said, people, you walk up and say, I'm a flat earther and gravity doesn't exist. It just makes you look like the dumbest person on earth. But if you have an intelligent discussion about it, it can actually talk about the properties and the nature of what's going on there. That's a whole different story, right? Then they're going to look at you as a little bit more intelligent and also a little bit more of a thinking person than to, outright proclaim that relative density disequilibrium is the only thing that matters, because it is not, and it's retarded to even say that it is. So that's it. All right, so
just tell the person that you just were taught a different type of gravity. This is what gravity actually is. You can still say the word gravity. I mean, it doesn't hurt at all when you're speaking to normies. You kind of have to speak in their language.
Exactly. Remember, you used to be there, right?
Yeah.
Isn't Ken Wheeler on board with this?
Ken Wheeler
coming around.
Yeah, Ken Wheeler.
I mean, the not calling it gravity. He's done videos calling out gravity, hasn't he?
He does, yes. And in fact, Ken, after Zack made his video, Ken kind of modified what he said about the electrostatic force, right? What did he say, Zack?
Instead of incoherent electrostatic acceleration, he called it mutual electrostatic acceleration.
That's right.
Okay. And frankly, I disagree with that. However, like I've said before, experimentally, you can make a case for that. Why? Okay. Here's why. Because all matter is made up of charged particles. Okay. So it is just like the magnets when you put them in an incoherent configuration, the overall magnetic field becomes weaker. It becomes weaker, and weaker. But the other thing that happens to it is it becomes attractive only. It no longer repulses anything. So if we're saying that electromagnetism or electrostatics and electromagnetism are basically two different modalities of the ether, then you could make a logical conclusion that yes, mass could attract mass based on an electrostatic attraction only, right? But they're not saying that. They have invented something called gravity that doesn't exist. They say it propagates this field that bends space. It doesn't exist, right? And that is the problem that flat earthers should have with gravity. You know, it doesn't exist in that context, but you need to understand the difference and what we're talking about here as far as effect. Okay, so cool. Let's go on to where was this? Okay, so Zack, I'm going to have Zack go ahead and talk about his video here and why he decided to do it, and then we're going to do a premiere of it. And I want to know what everybody thinks about this because I think it's pretty good. And you know, we've kind of come to the idea that you know, what he proposes at the end here, which should probably give us a pretty much slam dunk demonstration of whether or not the Earth is a sphere or not, at least if I'm understanding it correctly. And I could be wrong, but so I'm going to let Zack take it away, and Zack, give it an intro, and let's play it.
Yeah, when I was studying the sun back in 2016, I was noticing that it was rotating, you know. It was doing the wagon wheel effect. I would take a picture every, you know, sometimes it was every 10 minutes. I was just fascinated with this wagon. Sometimes in the early summer, you'll see it reverse early in the morning, and you'll see why when I demonstrate this. But I noticed that between like 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock, there was about a 90-degree rotation every day from my position at 41 degrees north latitude. And I started talking to other people about this, and Nick Phuket Word showed me this. And he said closer to the equator in Thailand, it's about 180-degree rotation, which makes sense because to keep an eye looking at the sun as it passes right directly over your head, you have to turn around 180 degrees. So therefore, your view, it's not so much that the sun and moon are actually rotating, it's that we are looking at it from a different perspective, and we have to turn different amounts depending on where we are on the Earth, what latitude we're on. And according to the globe model at the poles, you wouldn't see any rotation at all. There would be no rotation whatsoever. And if we don't have the South Pole, like we know we don't, then one day, one afternoon, between 10 and 2, we could destroy the heliocentric model forever with one moon passing by or one sun passing by with a sunspot on it to measure this. It would be that easy.
That would be cool, wouldn't it?
But yeah, it all has to do with your latitude. And on the northern hemisphere, the globe and the flat are exactly the same up to the equator. And then once you get past the equator, things start changing because it doesn't go back into that globe. That southern hemisphere doesn't wrap down. It keeps going out. So your perspective keeps changing. It doesn't go back to how it would if it were a globe. If that made any sense, this video should explain it a little bit better.
Excellent. Okay, and hang on a second. I'm going to Chris wanted to add something to this really quick, so I'm going to add him in.
Chris Van Maitre.
Chris Van Maitre, yes.
Excellent.
Awesome.
There's also a video I put in chat.
I've had a lot of people. Oh, sorry, John.
No, I was just saying, if you wanted to play a demonstration of this, I took 10 consecutive hourly shots of the moon on one day, and it shows it wagon wheeling backwards and forwards and everything. I'm at 53 or something degrees north.
Yeah, and depending on where the moon or the sun is, like in the summertime, around the solstice, in the north, you'll see a reverse rotation in the morning and in the afternoon because you're seeing the sun for a longer period of time. So you're seeing it take that hard turn to the north. Yeah. Whereas in the winter, you don't see that. So you won't see that reverse rotation in the winter time. So the sun, it appears different times of the year.
Yep. All right. Hey, Chris.
Hey, Chris.
Hello, Bob and everybody.
Hello, everybody. Your camera is on, Chris, even though we are not broadcasting on camera, but your camera is not on, just FYI. There, it's off. Okay. So, yeah. So obviously, I'm sure you would have something to add to this. And I don't know if I was right in saying that it was a comment that I received about one of your videos. Remember a while back, Chris, and somebody said, I think I brought it up on the show. Somebody said, well, it's because you're looking at the bottom of the sphere and that's why it's rotating clockwise to you. But I have problems with that. So, anyway, go ahead and add in what you wanted to say there.
Well, you want to go ahead and play Zack's video and then I'll jump in after that.
Oh, okay. That's cool. That's cool. And everybody, this is Chris Van Maitre, has been on the Globebuster show many, many times before. And personally, he's a good friend of mine and a good friend of the show. He's an awesome guy. And he's got some great information. So let's go ahead and world premiere this video from Good Times for All, or Zachary Zabala if you prefer. And then we will hear from the panel about it. Here we go.
Hello, everybody out there in YouTube land. This is Good Times for All, or Zachary Zabala here if you prefer. In this video, we will show one possibility on why the sun and moon wagon wheel across the sky. We will start by observing sunspot rotation from 41 degrees north latitude. I'd like you to pay attention to the time in the bottom right-hand corner and the arrow that will be placed to show the alignment of the sunspots. It is around 10 o'clock. And you can see as we jump forward about an hour, each time the sun continues to rotate clockwise to our perspective. Here at 2 in the afternoon, it's moved almost 90 degrees already. And by its finish, it has. Next we will observe the moon doing the same thing. Again, the time in the bottom right hand corner, and we will observe this spot right here as it rotates clockwise. You can see each picture is about an hour later, if not more. The spot, just like the spots on the sun, rotate clockwise throughout the evening. I learned this myself from a great video content creator named Phuket Word here on YouTube. He has all kinds of videos on perspective and how your eyes work, so go check out his channel. All you will need to try this at home and recreate it is a ceiling fan, a flat circular disc, and your eyes. We will observe from 4 different vantage points: directly under the pole, halfway to the disk, directly under the disk, and then about the same distance outside of the disk. We will also observe it while it is rotating in a counterclockwise rotation. We will start out with our first video directly under the North Pole. I will zoom in after each rotation, focus, and place a little crosshair. As you can see, the blue is on top and the red is on the bottom. As I rotate it here, you will see that it really doesn't rotate to our perspective due to the fact that we are standing on the pole. Once again, the blue is on top, the red is on bottom. Pretty close to just how it was in our previous picture. This would be in a southerly spot from our vantage point. And again, we see the blue on top and the red on the bottom. Our next position will be taken from around 45 degrees north latitude, or halfway between the pole and the disk. You can see we're starting on the opposite side of the pole, to where we're always started with the blue on top and the red on the bottom. I would like to apologize for all the long pauses between shots, but I wanted to make sure it was a complete video with 0 cuts. Due to the fact that we have a different point of rotation, or perspective if you will, we will now notice a different amount of rotation when viewing the disk. As you can see, we have rotated a little bit counterclockwise. This happens in the early morning and the late evening. Here, around the midday point, we see that the disk is the same as when we started, with the blue near the top and the red near the bottom, just slightly askew. This next rotation is where we will see one of the greatest amounts of rotation. I would like you to pay attention, since we are always rotating clockwise while we are inside the arc of the disk, near the mid part of the day. And with our last rotation, we see that the disk has even rotated a little bit more clockwise. Here in our third shot, we will be looking directly under the equator. Again, we start from the polar opposite side, so the blue is on top and the red is on the bottom. We would never see this view in real life, as the sun would be in a position to where we would not be able to see it. This would be closer to sunrise, and we can already see the disk has rotated to the left. As we bring it up near the midday, it rotates even more to the left. Again, I apologize for the long videos. And here's where the interesting part takes place. Directly overhead, we have to switch and turn around to see it, which means we have switched 180 degrees to keep viewing the disk. And now the blue is on the opposite side. We have just witnessed a full 180 degree rotation because we ourselves had to turn to keep seeing the disk. This is just showing how a sunset may look while the disk is rotating constantly. This would be beyond our path to where we would be able to see the sun anymore, but as you can see, the disk does not stop rotating. Only from the center, or the pole, does the disk stop rotating. Then we move it out to around 45 degrees south latitude. Just like all the other shots, we start from across the pole, a position where we would not see the sun. We can see as it starts to rise that it is rotated to the left once again. Now looking very much like it was at the equator, our blue is all the way to the left with our red facing to the right. As it rotated a full 90 degrees already to the left. Here's where it gets interesting, folks. When the disk is directly north of us, we now see it in the complete opposite. The red at the top and the blue at the bottom. The same way we see the moon in opposite directions, from the north to the south. We rotate it around again, and we see that the disk has rotated once again, in a counterclockwise rotation. Now this brings up a very interesting question. Shouldn't the sun or moon from the southern pole do the exact same as it does from the north, and not appear to rotate at all? Could one trip to Antarctica in one afternoon put the heliocentric model to bed forever? This is Good Times for All here, signing out. As always, thanks for watching.
Whew. That is a really, really good question, Zach. That's yeah.
Very doable as well.
Yeah, I think so. You know, what's amazing is I would think that they would have, I wonder if we could pull this off with some existing footage of the moon, but you know what? I don't think anybody's ever really tracked the moon. And that's what you're saying, Zach, is it would have to be tracked basically for 8-10 hours, something like that. Would that be correct?
Yeah, really right across the passing of due north. That would be where you would see a rotation or not, where you're going to see the most rotation. So really about 4 hours, whether it's the moon as it's passing your north azimuth or the sun with a sunspot on it that you can actually watch to see if it rotates or not. But yeah, according to their model, it shouldn't rotate at all from either pole. And really, I don't even think we would have to, because from 45 degrees north to 45 degrees south latitude, it should be the same amount of rotation, but just reversed. But I don't think it does. According to that demonstration I just showed, it looked like when I was at 45 degrees south, it rotated a lot more than when I was at 45 degrees north. So we may not
Yeah.
even have to go to Antarctica to do this one.
It'd be the pinnacle, though, wouldn't it? I mean, what's a trip to Antarctica? 40 grand?
Yeah, but we would want to have to go to the pole, the geographic South Pole. You know?
Well, that ain't going to happen. So,
Yeah.
but it would be most exaggerated from, say, the coast of Antarctica, wouldn't it?
Especially since there is no geographic South Pole.
Yeah, well, I didn't like to say.
Might as well book a trip to Narnia. So what did you think of that, Chris?
That was really good, Zach.
Yeah, we had this conversation a long time ago, Chris, because Chris was one of the people. It was Chris, myself, and Bo that were really tracking the sun and sunspots and trying to nail it down. And yeah, Chris was right there with me while I was doing all this.
Yeah, and I did a video evidence and data that the sun is at 93 million miles away that pretty much destroyed their parallactic angle. Because in that video, I went out one day and did the sunspots and did time lapse throughout the day, and then went out the very next day and got different rotation rates the very next day. And if we were on a globe, they should be exactly the same from day to day, but they weren't. They were drastically different. And also, I don't think they have a way to explain in July, around July, the sun does a reverse rotation for the first hour of the day, and then it goes extremely slow, and then around 11 o'clock to 2 o'clock, it does an extremely fast rotation. Then it slows down in the afternoon, and then it'd do a reverse rotation right before the sun set.
Yeah, not until I saw Nick's video showing this did I understand how that worked. And when I saw this one, I was like, oh, okay, because it shows the reverse rotation in the early, but you have to be, the sun needs to be further north. That's why we only see it in July, around July. We don't see it in like December.
Oh, that's crazy. So I don't remember that video, Chris. Which video was that you showed that? Was that one that we talked about on Globebusters?
I don't know if you ever talked about it on Globebusters, but I even graphed out the rotation throughout the entire day on there and pointed out, I think I had at least 3 or 4 different days where I went out 2 days in a row, and you could see a drastic change in the parallactic angle, which in my opinion totally destroys the heliocentric model, because it should be exactly the same.
Yeah.
And then if we're rotating at 15 degrees per hour, you think that you would see that in the parallactic angle of the moon and the sun, but it's not there.
Yeah, exactly. Now, what I remember about when you came on, and I think we were talking about the parallactic angle, is you were actually looking, you were doing star trails, and you were looking at the length of the star trails, like as compared with the moon. And it turned out that, you know, the moon, which supposedly is much, much, much closer, was giving a trail behind it about the same as the stars behind it, which are supposedly hundreds of thousands or millions or trillions of miles away, right? And that really struck me, because that tells me there's no parallax there. And that's impossible, but now what we found out since then, especially with the proof coming out about sextants, is, not only does it require the Earth to be flat pretty much, but it also tells me that the stars and all the celestial objects are pretty much on the same plane as well, right? So, yeah, I mean, it's really crumbling apart there, their model.
Has been for 5 years.
Yeah, it absolutely has. So, yeah, I just thought that was really interesting. And do you have, is that video among your current videos right now, Chris, that I could put in the show notes?
It's evidence and data the sun isn't 93 million miles away. It's an old one.
It's called Evidence and Data. All right, let me see. There it is. Okay.
Yeah, I remember we spent so much time talking about this stuff, Chris.
Yeah, and then the moon does a reversed rotation only in November, the first full moon of November.
That's interesting.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that cannot possibly happen on a spinning sphere. That just doesn't make any sense.
Reverse rotation should happen. You should never have negative parallactic angle.
Again, couldn't we model this in 3D software?
Probably. If you know how to use the 3D software, which I don't.
Well, Iru's in the chat, I think. But what we need is just a basic mock-up of what they tell us the solar system is, isn't it? And then we can put the cameras anywhere, and we can reel forward and reel backwards and be able to recreate what they say we should be seeing or are seeing, and show that it's absolute horse manure according to the 3D modeling. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, no, I agree with you completely. But yeah, that's, that was one of the most amazing things. I remember that day that you came on and we were looking at those the star trail links, and it's like, that can't happen. We're talking about objects that is a couple 100,000 miles away, alleged to you even got some headlights or something in the foreground, didn't you, Chris?
They were street lights. Actually, I went out and done headlights, street lights, and showed that, the trails should be longer the closer they are to you, and further away you get, they should be way shorter.
Way shorter, right. And the fact is they weren't. And that was, that made such an impact on me. It was so obvious. It's like, that is simply impossible, what we're seeing there. Because, it makes perfect sense. Draw it out on a big piece of paper, a small circle and going away, and each object traveling the same amount of mileage with respect to, where its position away from the center of the circle. There's going to be a huge difference. But it doesn't turn out that way. So yeah, that's absolutely amazing. So cool. So
and if anybody in chat is having trouble comprehending that video, just try it. Get a ceiling fan, cut out a little piece of paper, just put a couple dots on it, and you'll see that when you stand at different latitudes or different distances from directly underneath the center of the lights, you're going to see a different amount of rotation from where you're standing. And it's going to be different, especially whether you're inside of that arc or outside of that arc. We'll see a different rotation and a different amount of rotation depending on where you are.
Yep.
So yeah, just give it a try. It's an easy one. I love doing these little tests like that anybody can do. I try to make them, I know I have some equipment and whatnot that I've gone out and purchased, but for the most part, I'm a backyard scientist. I like to grab whatever I can and use that. So yeah,
like
this is an easy one. Yep, exactly.
If anyone hasn't seen Zack's marshmallow video about the phases of the moon, then you're in for a treat. Go find that.
Is it kind of like the Globe Earth logic where he goes, the kid's trying to toast a marshmallow and his dad's like, no, Jason, whatever your name is, you have to put it at 23.4 degrees. And then it toasts. It's like, oh, I see.
Well, we spent hours and hours and hours trying to explain to Aussie Rob about how the moon phases couldn't work. And then Zack pops up wherever you were. I think it was in Florida and Just Jacks or something, was it? Or I can't remember. But you just pulled out this marshmallow.
House. I was A.
McKenzie's, that's house. That's right. Pulls out this marshmallow and starts rotating around with this outside light on it. And Aussie Rod got it straight away. He was just like, now I get it.
Yep. This is definitely it, Chris. I remember this now very clearly. There's the light.
Yeah, if you fast forward to 2631, that's where you can see the reverse rotation.
All right, we'll get to there. Let's see. Let's put a sound on. Oh, maybe we don't need it.
No.
All right, so coming up on 2631, Mark.
Now look at the sunspots or the solar flares at the top, how they start reversing to the left.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
And this was either early in the morning or late in the afternoon, right?
This was early in the morning, right? I let the sun come up, so I didn't have, it was like the first hour. So there wasn't any atmospheric distortion.
And there it goes on its trek. And you were right around what, about 30? No, this was in Denver, I believe. So
It's
you
39
were,
degrees.
39?
Yep.
And you can see
so you
that
were-
it really speeds up in the center, and then you got your reverse rotation at the end of the day there.
Interesting.
Yeah, and that's what I just demonstrated with that little example I showed, that test. It showed, remember how I said, and we get a little bit of reverse rotation, and that'll happen in the morning or in the late evening. Yeah, the exact same thing we just saw with that test I did is what Chris is showing right here. The same rotations.
Mm-hmm. So the question is well, I guess maybe we could start combing through some existing footage and see what we can find. But otherwise, that would be something I think would be, worthwhile if we could actually have a realistic shot of, crowdfunding it and getting down there to, sending somebody down there to take pictures of it. But, the problem is the Antarctic sky is so cloudy, right? Because the weather's always awful there. And I wouldn't imagine that there would be, I don't know how much time you'd really be able to see the moon, that's what would bother me.
You'd have to camp out there for 6 months to get
south
one
would
night.
work fine.
Yeah.
I think 45 degrees south would be just fine. I think we'd be able to tell because the rotation will be different.
Yeah, we just need to model it
Chad
out.
put earlier, Santiago, Chile is right around 45 degrees south.
Yeah, ideal.
Mm-hmm.
It just needs some decent equipment, decent measuring equipment, so that you could show the difference between the two.
Yeah. Well, that's something to, put on the to-do list. And maybe if we get, somebody to finance one of these trips or something, that would be great. But, it's weird because we had several, at one time, we had several people that were wanting to do these documentaries, on flat Earth and actually go out and do these experiments. And, they were going to, come up with the money and all this stuff. And these were like small production agencies, movie production companies. And, I told them at the time, I said, I would be amazed if they would actually let you get away with it because you would be stepping on some major toes, if you actually pulled this off. And, years went by, months went by, since we got the offer from, I don't know, 2 or 3 of them that were talking about making this television show to do this. And it's like, well, yeah, we're still working on it. And now we don't even hear from them about it. So I think that they probably got the word, that they're not going to be allowed to finance something like that to go down there and prove them wrong. And, of course, the ballers are going to say something like, well, that's because it's just stupid and nobody's going to waste their money on it. It's like, is it with all of our proof? And the production companies were very interested in it. So somebody from a higher up, echelon put the kibosh on that. And it didn't surprise me.
They were going to do multiple series episodes, weren't they?
Yeah, they were. Yeah, it was going to be a whole season of stuff. So
funny why that didn't come about.
Yeah, we got a super chat from Thelsma Lelsak. I can't know how to pronounce that. I'm sorry if I butchered it. Anyway, he says, does the shadow on the moon stay stationary as to the round crater, or the moon's shadow rotates independently? I personally don't know. I've seen the shadow. I know what you're talking about, but whether or not it actually moves independently, I haven't watched it that closely. I'll have to look at some footage close up. Do any of you happen to know the answer to that off the top of your head?
No, I don't.
What was the question? Sorry, I was trying to read his name.
He said, does the shadow on the moon stay stationary as to the round crater, or moon's shadow rotate independently? In other words, we can see a shadow that appears to, be there, when it's supposedly lit by the sun. But, whether or not it moves independently, I really don't know. I haven't actually looked at it looking for that. So I guess that's something we'll have to look for. Great suggestion,
I
though.
noticed the eclipses do something like that too, because the shadow came in at one direction and then it rotated and then it came out from the opposite direction without ever really crossing all the way across it. I only saw a crescent, and the crescent never went to full and then passed over that crescent. It went to a crescent and then the shadow moved away. I bet there's something to do with that too.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have a lot of pictures of the last eclipse, so I'll have to start going through that.
Yeah, I do too. I have a ton of them with the P900 and, well, not so many of the P1000, but I had a ton of them with the P900. But yeah, that's something that we can definitely zoom in on and take a look at it here and see, because that's an interesting question. But
well, according to my video, I don't know if this shows it or not actually, but it's not a full moon in my video in the 1 day, 10-hour consecutives. And the shadow is moving with the wagon wheel, is moving with the, I call it the football. So the shadow isn't staying the same when it's doing its wagon wheeling thing. The shadow is moving with the wagon wheel.
Okay. Yeah, I figured it would, but I didn't want to say it because I didn't see it that way. So I just, yeah.
Well, check it out, Bob. It's only 38 seconds long.
Whenever I did my moon data collecting, I was doing it only during full moons because I was doing the sun a lot at the time. So I did it only on full moons to show how the moon changed sizes throughout the year.
Okay, so go ahead and just play this.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Yeah, that's quite the libration there.
Yeah, so you see the shadow moves with
in
relation to it. Yeah,
answers that question. Thank you, John.
Yep, Beautimus.
I knew
Thank you,
it
sir.
had some use.
You knew you took that picture for some reason. Beautiful. So, hey, Chris, I'm curious, and Zach and I were talking about when you were here last summer, and of course we spotted that second sun again. And it's funny because I got so many emails from people saying that they have witnessed the same type of thing, and they are absolutely convinced that this second sun is it's becoming manifest, up in the sky, but a lot of them believe that it's coming through the opening at the North Pole, right? And it's just interesting, some of the feedback that we got on it, and we've also found a few more mainstream references that actually speak about it, that something like that is actually happening, which is bizarre, right? So we were wondering when or if you have had a chance to do any more scanning with your solar telescope to see if you can get a little bit more detail on that, if you had an opportunity to do that yet.
Yeah, I've got some footage and I haven't put it together yet, and I used the filters and wasn't able to get the second sun to totally disappear, but about 80% of it, which still shows that it's a different object.
When you say you couldn't get it to disappear, are you talking while rotating a polarized filter?
Yeah, with the polarized filter.
Okay, but it was responding to the polarized filter.
Yes.
Okay.
Wow, so we could get it to completely go away. That is interesting.
No, he said he couldn't quite get it to completely, but about 80%, which of course it shouldn't be doing that at all. And that's the whole thing, guys. And this is what precludes it from being a freaking reflection like Wolfie insisted. It cannot be a reflection because there's only one angle, and it's a very precise angle that it has to come in on to be able to satisfy that condition. And Chris has taken this picture of it. In fact, you got it at our house, you got it at Karen B's house, and every single time it was a slightly different angle. And we were seeing that phenomenon happen. So I really think, God, I'm really excited to have you put some more of that stuff together, Chris, because that's a ball killer. It really is.
Yeah, it's like I said, I've got some footage, but I need to get out and do some better footage. But I did get out, probably 3 months ago and use the filter on it. Like I said, I got about 80% of it to 80% of it to go away. But also with that too, in the telescope, you've got the refraction underneath the sun that we do see, and then you also have refraction under the sun that we don't see. Now, is there any time that you're going to have refracted image also refract?
No. Just the fact that it one of them reacts to polarized filters and the other one doesn't is, I mean, am I right in saying that is conclusive to say that it is two different objects?
Absolutely.
Has to be, really.
Yes.
I can't think of any other reason, but that in itself, whether you can make it completely disappear or not, that in itself is just a ball stopper.
Yeah. And again, and people that say that I was just reading the comments. It's so funny. People still think the moon is spherical. That is so easily debunked, the moon being spherical. And it's like, come on, guys, get real. You don't have the hot spot. Even NASA admits that there has to be a hot spot. They put that specular highlight on their blue marble picture. That doesn't happen on the moon. It is evenly distributed light all the way back to the equatorial regions, from our perspective, right? And that cannot happen on a ball. It doesn't. Balls do not appear that way optically. And as far as the claim as it, one sphere, the only thing that will make a round eclipse over a sphere is another sphere is complete bullshit. We've had Airy demonstrate time and time and time again, the guy that you can take a straight edge and pass it over a sphere and it will come up with a round eclipse, right? So these guys they're crazy. So that's what puts them back to saying, well, didn't Globebusters prove 15 degrees per hour? Because they're stupid and they don't know any better. But, that's all they have left to hang on to. The ball is so dead.
Well, they know that it's not stupid. They would have, if they're in this for so long, they would themselves know that it is significant, which is why they keep saying 15 degrees an hour. Cheers, Bob. Thanks, Bob. They're just hoping that the people that read the comments are that lazy or stupid that they won't go and investigate it for themselves and see that the thanks Bob crew are the ones that are lacking in brain power.
Yeah, I know. And the ironic part about it wasn't even me that did the experiment. That's the stupidity in degree one. Secondly, on the follow-up experiments, they were done by Chris Van Maitre, myself, and Good Times for All when we did the follow-up experiments up at Pikes Peak. And we took the measurements up there and then differential measurements that were down about almost 10,000 foot lower. And there was absolutely a very significant change in rotational rates between those two latitudes between those two elevations on the same latitude, right? Because if you're going to do it on a ball, if we're on a ball, then it has to remain on the same latitude. Otherwise, your rotation rate has to be calculated differently. Well, the problem is that when we got a different result back on the same latitude, that completely annihilated the idea that it was the Earth rotating at 15 degrees per hour and proved unequivocally that it was, in fact, the luminiferous ether that was turning. And of course, we know that because we can look up in the air, right? We can look up in the sky and we can see the stars turning, and they are turning at 15 degrees per hour. And, you know, again, the ballers never seem to want to go back to Michelson-Gale, which was the first mainstream science team that proved there was a 15 degree per hour rotation picked up. But they don't dare claim that as their evidence, because then they have to back up Michelson-Morley, and they can't do that. So dumb globers, you know, that keep saying thanks, Bob, get a clue. The reason that they didn't claim the real scientists that did that is because they knew that they couldn't prove it. And it would fall apart.
Volumes.
Yeah.
Speaks volumes, doesn't it?
They're so stupid. They really are. And that's all they have to resort to. Oh, thanks, Bob, for the 15 degrees per hour. I mean, God, what a bunch of retards. But that's, you know, you are what you are. And they are certainly saying, let's see, but I was battery machines I was talking about in 2016. I don't know what that is, Robert. I was just looking at your video that you're showing there.
Hey, what's up, everybody?
Whoops. Depopulation. Oh, okay. Yeah, no kidding, Robert. Yep, no kidding, Robert. Yeah, you weren't wrong, not even in the least. And, you know, that's something we can't talk about on YouTube anymore. I'm surprised they haven't taken that down, to be honest with you, but, you know, that's crazy. So anyway, guys, okay.
Hey, Bob, on that note, yeah, when we proved the ether existed, it's something that they just want to totally ignore. And that's probably one of the biggest experiments that's been done in flat Earth.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. It was conclusive. And not only that, it's been backed up by a completely different verification methodology. What was that verification methodology? Airy's failure. What did Airy's failure tell us? Airy's failure was a simple optical experiment that allowed us to differentiate between whether or not we had stars rotating above us, or we had stars stationary above us and we were rotating below the stars. The optical experiment, which is as simple as the day is long, proved every single time that it was the stars moving above us because of the angle that it cast the light into the telescope, and whether or not we had to tilt the telescope any further forward once we added the water, because of the fact that the light was coming in at the proper angle in the first place. Putting the water in there did not make any difference, and we did not have to tilt the telescope any further forward, because it was in fact the stars that were turning above us.
It took me so long to get that too.
And me.
I don't know why. It was one of those things that just took me forever. But when it snapped, I was like, oh my goodness, that is just genius.
It is
so simple.
It's incredibly, and to watch Wikipedia skew it, you know, it's oh God, talk about desperation. It's right up there with, gee, didn't Globebusters prove 15 degrees per hour? It's like, wow, no.
I think that was the original, wasn't it, Bob? It was the original. Thanks, Bob. They called it Airy's failure. It was just, you know, you're too stupid, you're too lazy, you're too dumb to go and look at the actual experiment. You're just going to read the title, Airy's failure. So he obviously failed. Therefore, we live on a spinning ball.
Yep, exactly. And that's, you know, that's what happened. These people are mentally lacking. They have no reasoning capabilities. They're just part of a gang of imbeciles, frankly, that they cannot think for themselves. And, you know, I don't even have a problem calling them that, because as long as so many of these people have been in this, it is just willful ignorance to not, you know, have heard all the facts that we have presented, seen the data that we have presented. I released that data. I don't know if you knew that or not, Chris, but I released that data. And lo and behold, the Globers couldn't say much about it other than, oh, Bob was just lying about it all anyway. It's like, tell me one thing I lied about, Globers. One thing. You say that I was trying to cover things up in that movie because I said, wow, if we release this information now, it wouldn't look good for the flat Earth. Why would I say that? Well, maybe because we didn't know what the source of that 15 degree per rotation was, but we were pretty convinced, that it was something other than the rotation of the Earth, because there's nothing else that backs that up. And then once we came up with a conclusion, with an experiment that proved it conclusively, beyond any shadow of a doubt, that it was not the rotation of the Earth, then you didn't want to accept that. Then all of a sudden, I'm lying about it, right? And again, like I said, Michelson Gale did the same thing over 100 years ago. And you guys, if you had any brains at all, you'd be pointing to that, trying to claim that there's your scientific evidence, but you won't, because you know where that's going to take you. It's going to put you into a logical fallacy, and you're going to get annihilated by Michelson Morley. Period.
Well, didn't you make a video on the altitude, latitude with the fog gyroscope? There was, is it Yappy? Yeah, Yappy Town was asking where he can find a video of that or evidence on that.
Yappy Town? I don't know.
Yeah, he said where can the latitude / ether experiment be seen on or read about? You did a video on it, didn't it?
Yeah, it was actually put out on. I released the video and all the data on Ranty's old channel called Brandon's, right? So I was on there, and I was catching a lot of crap from flat earthers because we had just gotten into the COVID crap and everything was shut down. We weren't really getting much done in the way of experimentation because everything was being completely shut down. Yada, yada, yada. But that data I made available then, and I have no problem with making it available again, but I made not only the data available, but I also made the decoder that from the corporate software that the fiber optic gyro came with to interpret the data. I made that available so that they could look at it in the spreadsheet form and figure out exactly what it was talking about. Well, lo and behold, they didn't know what to think of that because it said exactly what I said it did. And what I said it did is that when we made a testing variance of 10,000 foot in elevation over that same latitude, it showed a very dramatic change in rotational rate. That cannot happen on a ball, period. All right?
Yeah. And we didn't do it just once. We did it in 2 different locations.
Yes, Guanella Pass and Pikes Peak.
Yeah, and I think the Pikes Peak one, I drove almost to the Kansas border to find the latitude there and a drop in 10,000 feet.
Yeah, I know. You went way out there. And yeah, Chris did that one by himself. But yeah, so I figured, well, we kept talking about, well, when we get to that point, we'll elaborate on it. And I still want to get another fiber optic gyro. Unfortunately, Seventh Day True Seeker, his channel got shut down. He's gone away. Nobody can get a hold of him. I don't know what happened to him, honestly, but that was his fiber optic gyro. We did not spend any donation money. He paid for that all by himself. He spent I think it was like 14 grand. I thought it was 20 at first, but it was like 14 or 15,000 that he paid for it, all out of his own money. We did have something arranged at one point in FE Core where we were going to get to demo the newest super duper highest resolution laser interferometer from a company that was, starting to sell them. And, then I don't know what happened with that. Well, what happened with that is COVID is what happened with that. I mean, that is really screwed up. And yes, so the data has been shared. It's out there. I will share it again. And like I said, I have no problem doing that because there's nothing to hide here. And it's amazing to see the reactions of it. Oh, you're just lying. It's like, yeah, right. I went through or Chris, right? Chris, you probably did it, right? You went through and changed all those hundreds of entries, right?
I was going to, you still don't have that data. I've got it backed up. I've still got it on my laptop.
Yeah, no, I've got it. I've got it right here on this machine. I've also got it on a Google Drive. So yes, I will share it. Yes, Ethan Graham, I see you. You don't have to keep asking 1,000 times. Yes, I will share it again. You can go off and look at it yourself, and hopefully, I can wish that will be the last I ever hear about the stupid 15 degree per hour, but it won't be, because it'll be willfully ignored, and they'll say, "Well, you guys must have done something. You're desperate." It's like, no, I don't think so. Look, we have nothing to gain by
All they got to
proving.
do is go and recreate it. Go do it yourself.
So there we go again. We need 40 grand to go to Antarctica, and we need 14 grand for a fiber
Another
optic
fog.
gyro
Yep.
for the community that we can send all around the world, and people can test it out for themselves. We need a fund, don't we? Where are all these Bitcoin millionaires or billionaires or whatever?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's just crazy.
I don't think we're going to have to go to Antarctica. I think we can do this from Santiago or someplace down there in South America.
We'll just get Dr. Zack to do it on AutoCAD first, or Cinema 3D, or Mike might be able to do it too. FE course president, or former president. You know who I'm talking about.
Kavanaugh,
yeah.
I think that's CAD though, isn't it? Airy was saying about this would be more practical or visual or accurate in 3D software, and I'm not sure CAD can do 3D, but I could be talking out of my arse.
Yeah, I don't know. Hard telling. Oh, Brian. Yeah, Brian Leake is in chat. So I don't know, Brian. You may know where that is offhand, but like I said, I'll post it again. Brian was there. He's one of the mods in chat. He was there the day I released it. And I did post it on Brandon's show. And like I said, it showed exactly what I said it would. And, otherwise all hell would have broke loose, right? But there was not too much of a peep out of the ballers, other than, oh, he's just lying. He's just lying. That's all they got.
Loose regardless, didn't it?
Yeah.
And that's the way propaganda and people's weak minds work.
Yeah, it is sad. It really is. It's sad that they do that. But, like I said, we have absolutely nothing to gain, by pushing a fake flat earth model. And for those of you that think we know better and we're pushing it anyway, you're out of your freaking mind. If you think that we're doing this for entertainment and literally putting ourselves in a position of, everybody hating us and thinking we're crazy and never being able to be employable again, right? Because people will check this stuff. If you really think that we think it's okay to do this, for a joke, then you are just stupid. Okay. I don't know what else to say about people like you. We do this because we have seen the truth in this. We've seen the data. We've critically thought it out. We've got every experiment in the world that backs it up. And there is nothing that backs up the ball, period. And everything backs up the flat earth. And don't ever let the Globers tell you any different, because all they've got is obfuscation and lies and all this stuff. And no, Ethan, I don't know what happened to Brandon. You're right. I haven't seen him in a while, so I don't know what happened to him. But perhaps Brian Leake might know where he went. But no, I haven't seen his show come on, so I really don't know what happened to him. It's called Brandon Toy is his name, Brandon Toy. And he took over Ranty Flat Earth's channel when Ranty decided to become a Glober. And, that's so weird that Randy would hand over his channel to somebody who's going to continue promoting Flat Earth, right? and him, I mean, those guys they're crazy. Talk about a bunch of clowns. I mean, what do you say about people like that, right? Oh, I'm going to become a baller, but I'm going to go ahead and hand over my Flat Earth channel to a guy that I think is going to take really good care of it.
As a flat earther. You got Sarah Stylers in chat asking where she can donate. She's got a large contribution, so I don't know if you wanted to point her in the right direction rather than the money grabbing YouTube.
Yeah, Super Chat is not the place to do it. If you look in the show notes, you will see links for Patreon. You will see a link for Cash App, You'll see a link for Venmo. And we also have PayPal too, which is Globebusters. I didn't put that in there because I don't really want to advertise that because, I don't really want that one to get shut down. But we do have PayPal under Globebusters, and it comes up under Denver Network. But you can do a PayPal to Globebusters, and that will come to us. So you got PayPal, you got Patreon, you got Cash App, you got Venmo. I also accept various forms of Bitcoin, or you can just email me at the email address there. And if you want to make private arrangements, then your donations are always welcome and very much appreciated. So there you have it. Alrighty then. Okay, guys. So I think we're probably going to wrap it. I did want to show one other thing, and I think I showed this. Pretty sure I did show this a couple weeks ago. I just think this is so funny. You guys all are aware of NASA having to kick the moon missions up another year, right? First they were supposed to be last year, and then this year, and then next year, and now they're kicking it up even further. But they're basically saying at this point they can't figure out how to design a spacesuit that is going to be viable for the astronauts to work in. Right now, this was their big deal that they were showing off like a couple years ago in 2019. So last year, no, it was a couple years ago, and it looks just pretty much exactly the same way that the Apollo astronaut backpack did. Also, it's lacking a lot in that you do not see any blown up anything that is exerting pressure on the astronaut's body. And of course, if you ever watch these spacesuits in space, they are never inflated like the Goodyear blimp man, and they would have to be because they're running up against even though they're only pressurizing those at 5 psi, they're running that 5 psi adjacent to a 10 to the negative 17 torr, which would make that thing blow up so hard and so rigid that there is no way in God's green earth that astronaut would ever be able to ever move at all.
It
looks like
Stay Puft Marshmallow Man.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for. The Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. That's exactly what it would have to look like. And there's so many demonstrations of that. People have shown it. Even Action Lab, and the guy's far from a flat earther, but Action Labs showed that. It's like there's no way that you can do that. It simply doesn't work. So,
it
and you would
looks
think
like my Buzz Lightyear doll.
Yeah, I know. And again, why don't they just use what they wore during the Apollo missions, right? Hey, that worked great then. And remember back then they didn't know about the Van Allen radiation belt, so just pretend you don't know about it and then they won't die.
Yeah, they do spacewalks all the time, right? They're out in this all the time up on the ISS. They have spacesuits. So this is just can kicking. This is another reason for them to kick the can down the road. There will be another one, don't worry. Something's going to happen. I hear Elon's already talking about the new engine that they want to build for going to the moon would put SpaceX bankrupt or something like that now. So I'm sure that'll be an issue and it'll get kicked down to 2028 and then 2035 and yeah.
Yeah, it's nuts. And there's one other thing in here also, and I'm not going to play it now, but this is JTOL and Media One's latest video, and it's kind of cool because he actually has a little bitty play card down here that talks about the ideal gas law and how it's not really so true, right? This is something I started out talking about at the beginning of the show, that the ideal gas law, yeah, it's ideal, but it's far from true and it's fantasy. And it's funny because they say it's only a little bit not true. No, it's a lot not true. There's a lot about it that doesn't make any sense. Claiming that no energy is ever drained off of these collisions is patently absurd. That would drain a lot of energy, and unless it's being continually sustained or replenished, it's going to drain off eventually. But he does mention that in this video, and this video is fantastic, by the way. If you haven't seen it, you probably should. But the other thing he goes into talking about, and I partially agree with him, and then I partially disagree with him also, is he says, the reality is, he's talking about the standard refraction model, and how the globers basically, with their 7.6R, are giving us the impression that the light's going to refract down and it's going to follow the curvature of the Earth around, right? Well, I've said many times that if you look at Google Earth, then what that tells us is if you're looking straight level off of a sphere, as your line of sight goes further and further out, it's higher and higher and higher with respect to the ground, right? And so that's the thing that you have to pay attention to, because the air gets thinner, which means that there's really no way that light could be drawn downward, right? It cannot be drawn downward because it's actually got less dense air below it, right? So that the 7.6R is completely debunked there. And the idea of having any refraction drawing light down is preposterous. It really is. And J. Tolan Media goes into that in this particular video, and he says, really what's happening is you're much more likely to get refraction in the upward direction, which is exactly what we got and I demonstrated with the laser lights in the FE core experiments, right? We actually saw them go up. And there is not one video out there anywhere that a baller has ever been able to show a refraction in a downward direction. Why? Because it doesn't happen. And if it does, it's extremely rare. It would have to take a very, very rare condition of the atmosphere, because it would have to have a denser altitude, a denser density altitude, or a denser atmosphere on the bottom to draw it down, right? But that doesn't happen by the nature of the globe. The only reason it happens at all is because it is level, and so you're going through more and more atmosphere on a basis that's going straight away on a plane from you. But the bottom line is that time after time after time again, the actual visual evidence that we see is the laser lights are refracting upwards. Never do we see it refracting downwards, unless, of course, you want to put 50 tons of butane in front of a camera lens and turn that on full blast. Like, that's really going to mimic a real life situation, right? Desperation, absolute desperation.
I know somebody was telling me over Lake Michigan, they've had 70-degree shifts in temperature in like 20 minutes.
Well, they do have a thing called Chinook winds, so theoretically that's possible. I would say for either direction.
The closest I've seen was like 50 degrees, but but
it's rare.
Change over the lake. It changed over land. Over the lake, it stayed pretty much the same.
Right.
But over the land, just a couple miles from the lake, there was a huge shift in temperature.
Right.
Dr. John Dee did numerous experiments on this as well, showing that it refracted upwards rather than downwards, didn't he?
Exactly. Yeah, John Dee did. FE Core did. Oh my goodness. So many videos that I've seen. Taboo Conspiracy saw that happen. There's a ton of them that, people have said, we always see it refract up when it refracts, which is rare. But, almost any atmospheric condition is possible, but some are just extremely rare, But, the idea of putting a 7.6R continuous to cover your butt, and then, that's absurd, because nobody ever sees that as a matter of routine. It refracts upwards, not downwards. And the globe design itself would prohibit it from refracting downwards. And they don't seem to ever acknowledge that. But,
That's because they're working on computer simulations and stuff rather than reality.
Yeah, exactly. Or simulation of a globe. Because that's what I demonstrated on. If you're shooting a laser beam out level off a globe, you're going to be going higher and higher and higher with respect to the drop off of the globe. And when you go lower in altitude, you get higher in density. This is from that thing called gravity, which is really not gravity, but downward accelerative electrostatic vector. Okay. That's why that happens. Anyway. All right, guys. So, I think that's about all I have. I told you it was going to be a short show today, and we're going to keep it a little bit short. So, Yeah, it's going to be about a 2 hour and 15-minute show today, which is cool. So let me go around one more time with everybody. And Chris, I'll start with you, sir. What do you got coming up? We haven't heard from you in a while. What you got coming up? Anything exciting?
Not really. I've been busy with work and busy with family and personal matters. And hopefully here soon I can get out and do some work on the second son.
Yeah, I think that would be awesome. You know, I'd really like to get a solar scope kind of like yours. How much was that? Was that around $2,000 or was that more than that?
Yeah, with the double stack, it runs about like 2,500, I think.
Okay. Well, maybe at some point I'm gonna put that on the wish list. But I mean, I'm really wanting to pursue this double sun thing, especially with all the information I've seen on it and what you got and what Crow got. I mean, that's something that in the fact that they had to send out Wolfie to try and shoot it down, that was hysterical, because that guy is, he's their go-to clown when they need to call in the heavyweight.
Addressed.
Yeah, that he never actually addressed
the polarization at all. He just ignored it.
Well, and when he did his video, it's like comparing apples to oranges, because he wasn't even using the same solar telescope that me and Crow use. So they had changed the tilt tuner, the way that he could move the refracted sun in his telescope is not the same thing that works in the one that me and Crow have. So he's comparing apples to oranges. So it was just ridiculous, the whole video that he did.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Yeah, don't I know it? And like I said, they only send him out when they think they've got a problem and they've got to put somebody on there that sounds credible, and he does. But I put up a meme on him where it was like a pilot walking around with sunglasses and a CNI dog in an airport, and I just found that really apropos to Wolfie, because he's got all this information yet he is so blind, and it's just willful with him. It's incredible. So. But anyway,
it's called a paycheck, I think.
That's what it's called. Well, yeah, and there's all kinds of interesting things about Wolfie, which we won't get into that at this time, but that may come out in some point. We've gotten some really interesting information about him, but nothing that I really want to talk about at this point in time. But I do know that he is far from honest.
And especially not on this platform.
Yeah, especially on this platform for sure. So
yeah, we had a lot of dishonest people, even in the flat Earth. And before I go, I need to say this, and it's probably not going to be taken very well by a lot of people, but my condolences go out to Antonio's daughter and his family. Antonio was not a very good person. And before he passed away, I wished he would have admitted the lies that he told about Patricia and what he's put her through and what she still is going through from the lies and stuff that he put out on her.
Yeah.
Plus the community themselves that never ever did stand up for her, and to this point still hasn't.
Yeah. Well,
he was not a very good person, and talent should never, ever, ever, ever trump a disgusting person. And he talked poorly about everybody.
Yes, he did.
And I hate to say it, but karma caught up with him. He talked poorly about everybody and died of throat cancer, and I consider that to be karma. Big time karma.
I hear you. And I have to say this, I mean, and there was a time when Antonio and I really got along well. And it's, as far as he and I, we never had issues with each other. But where we fell out was when I started defending what he was saying about Patricia Steer. Because what he was saying was so absurd, about her, being a transsexual and all this crazy stuff. And then hearing both sides of the story, I just told him, I said, Antonio, why don't you just let it go, leave it alone, and move on, right? But he didn't ever want to do that. He had to be, I had to go on and make this point. And as a result of it, for the next 30 or 40 videos, well, the videos all the way up until he died, he was constantly, attacking Globebusters or anybody in the Globebusters, because I personally would not go along with his, shit talking that he was talking about Patricia Steere. Now, you may think a lot of things about Patricia Steere, but she is a good person. She's a very nice woman. She is far from a CIA agent, and anybody that thinks that is brain dead. She was just somebody that was out here trying to contribute in her own way to the Flat Earth community, and I totally supported that, and I did not support Antonio in what he was doing with her and the lies that he was telling. So I agree with you there. And it's unfortunate that he's passed along, but the bottom line is what he did before that was, it was reprehensible. It really was. But, and I'm not going to talk ill about the bad, rest in peace. But it's just, this is where talking all this shit about everybody gets people. It's just shit talking. We need to get along as a community. We need to accept each other, and especially, oust people that are, trying to cast suspicion on everybody for any little thing. My God, if Patricia was truly a CIA agent or Mark Sargent, I mean, it's like, how incompetent do they have to be? What have they ever done? What did they ever do that would be, considered devastating to this movement? It's patently absurd.
Yeah,
and
nothing.
It's just, so I agree with you, Chris.
I mean, I've had doubts about everybody when, back in 2015, 2016. But after 5-6 years, folks, it's like, come on. Nobody is really, they're not saying anything bad about Flat Earth. They're not giving out any dumb ideas or this or that or making us look bad. I don't understand where all this hatred comes from.
Well, because her last three initials of her name are CIA. That's got to be reason enough, right? So stupid.
What is it, the long con? Are they going to wait till everybody wakes up or something? I mean, yeah, it's just dumb.
Yeah,
it
really is.
It's disgusting and unacceptable. And they tell people that they're gatekeepers and that they're handlers. They're basically the handlers because they're trying to tell everybody to unsubscribe and not to listen to you and all the people in Flat Earth. So they have become the handlers.
Yeah, exactly.
Talk badly about it, and
yep.
It's.
Yeah, I'm with you, Chris, and I second you with condolences to Anthony's family and friends, but Antonio's family and friends. But yeah, they're the real losers.
Yeah. So there you have it. And like I said, you know what? If anybody thinks that we are shills or we're out here to shill this out, then just hit the unsubscribe button, go away, and don't worry about it. Because you know what? If enough people detect that we are full of crap and they know better, then we're not going to do very well. And I got news for you guys. Globebusters is doing better now than we ever have. We are almost, get this, guys. Oh, here it comes. We are coming up on 66,666 subs pretty soon, a couple hundred more. All right. It has continuously been growing. We are doing absolutely fabulous on Rockfin. And our viewership, yeah, granted, our overall views are down. Like right now, we've got 425 watching on YouTube. And let's see, we are looking at DLive, and DLive doesn't have that many, only has 10 viewers. Rockfin is showing 81 viewers. So, 600, 5 to 600 viewers total, which obviously is a long ways from we used to get 1,800 to 2,000, but that is because it's not because we've lost subscribers. We haven't. Our subscribers have continuously gone up. We've lost the views because we're not getting promoted. And of course, everybody knows that. But other than that, we have, I constantly get year-long subscribers on Rockfin. I mean, we are doing fabulous there. And yeah, no, never better. never better. So, and if we
when
sucked,
when you hear the truth, it vibrates with you if you're
Yeah.
in the right place. And Glowbusters is absolutely on par all the time, and will only get better because that's what we're after, is truth. You know, whether the world falls.
Yeah, I agree, and that's and even at the cost of our own reputations, you know, all of us made the decision. We knew, especially going live with our faces, our real names. You know, my history is an open book. You know, I've been investigated in every way possible. All of us have, you know, because people are just looking for that one little bit of dirt they really want to get on you. But since there isn't any, then it's like, oh my God, let's just start making up. You know, I've actually been accused of being a woman. My wife has been accused of being a man. This is fucking desperation, people. It's so crazy.
And this is exactly the reason why you ain't going to see my face or know my name. Sorry. From day one, I knew. Yeah, no, forget it.
Yep. Yeah. So anyway, you know, we're just doing what we do, and we're going to keep doing that, and keep bringing you stuff, and yeah. So there you have it. So all right, guys. So Chris, I guess that's it for you. So Mr. Savage, do you have anything you want to have to say to the rest of the world? Oops, John.
Muted.
Is he muted?
Skype might be doing the thing where they disconnect him.
No, he's showing
I
connected.
hadn't seen it happen. Yeah, and I didn't see him have to jump out earlier.
No, he's not muted. Oh, we're not hearing you, John, for whatever reason. God, why do they always take him out at the end of the show? That's so weird.
I know.
And it seems like that happens to
like
Morgile
every
too.
week.
You hear
There
me?
he is.
There you are.
Good grief. This is just uncanny.
It is bizarre. It's like it's happened, what, every week?
Pretty much, yeah. I heard you mention my name, and then Skype just rebooted, and I was like, all right, okay, we'll play that bloody game again. No, I haven't got much planned. I did want to highlight a good video from Flat Earth, Banjo, USA, Japan, and Brazil, talking about an SR-71 pilot confirming flat Earth. I don't know if you saw that, but
yep, I did.
That's well worth looking at. And this week, I will be mainly playing with my new toy, which is a software-defined radio. And if you're interested in that, go look it up, because that's what I'm doing right now.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, and the way that he makes that case is basically the SR-71 pilot talks about seeing the Rocky Mountains, you know, from Colorado all the way up into the Canadian border, right? And it's like, even at the altitude that the SR-71 flies, the curvature of the Earth would block off almost all of that. So it's really good. You know, I've heard it before, but it's really a good proof. You know, as if we don't already know it, everything proves flat Earth. There's just nothing that doesn't. So
and it goes hand in hand with J. Tolan Media's evidence and the stuff that he's bringing forward. I used to know an SR-71, I thought it was 72, but an SR-70 whatever pilot who was absolutely a flat earther now. So yeah, everything points to flat Earth. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it absolutely does. There was a SR-71, and then the YF-12 was the spy version of it, I think. But yeah, there are a few different versions of it, but nevertheless, it's still one of the coolest planes that ever existed, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, you know it.
It's badass looking, man. I love it.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
But yeah, everyone have a good week, and yeah, we'll hopefully see you next week.
All right, sounds good. And Zach, coming around to you. Anything else you want to say before we take off?
Everybody go out and try that. Just cut out a circle, put some dots on it, stick it up on a ceiling fan, and stand in different areas between the pole and outside of the ceiling fan. And I've never really nailed down the rotation perfectly. So, I've never got out the protractor and really, I just noticed that it rotated, about 90 degrees here, 180 degrees here. So we could really nail this down and then 3D model it on a globe and say, hey, we're not seeing what we should see here. I think it could be that easy. But yeah, this is an easy one anybody can do. If you don't understand it, try it and you'll get it once you do it yourself. There's so much stuff that people have trouble seeing it, even when they're looking at a video. But when you do it yourself, it locks it all in. Yep. I promise. Just give it a try.
Very good. Okay, and as far as the tips on Rockfin, thank you so much, Greg Abel, for the tip. Greatly appreciated. And thank you, Rose777, who says, I love you guys. We love you too, Rose. Glad you're with us, and it's always a pleasure to have you here. So beautiful. All right, guys, that's it for this week. We will see you back on Sunday. And hopefully we'll have some really interesting things coming up for you then. I'm working on a few things that hopefully will be done and I can get it released by then. If not, it'll probably be the following week. But I am working on one thing that I'm going to try and get out by Sunday. So we'll see how that gets. So until then, guys, be good to each other. Open your, don't lie to each other. Open your mind. There's truth inside. Wow, I almost forgot my tag saying that I stole from Jeran. Peace out, everybody. We'll see you later.
Let's go, Brandon.
Let's go, Brandon.